ANMAtalks is an initiative for sharing knowledge between students, staff, and management of the Nordic and Baltic Academies for Higher Music Education, and anyone else interested. Welcome to this 8th edition, ANMAtalks, Artistic Citizenship, Financial Sustainability and Employability. The session is presented in collaboration with the Next Network. So welcome to this ANMAtalks session. As I said, the topic today is Artistic Citizenship, Financial Sustainability and Employability. And actually the last talk we did in December was also about artistic citizenship. But this was more from is it the responsibility of the artist to actually go into the topic of artistic citizenship at all? So today we take a different perspective, and a perspective that, at least to my knowledge, is rarely discussed, the more financial aspect and employability aspect of this topic. And to go through this with me, I have our lovely panel present, and I am now going to ask you to introduce yourselves briefly and say a little bit about where you come from and what your daily work consists of. So, Helena, would you like to start?
Thank you, Camilla. Yeah, and thanks so much for the invitation to be part of this discussion, which I think is a really exciting one. I'm an oboe player and spent many years playing as a professional and then teaching principal of the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama in Cardiff, Wales. I would say that this is a topic that is very close to my heart. The whole question of the relationship between making music, the artistic endeavor, and connecting in society, I think is the most critical issue for professional training that we have at the moment. And in my own background, in my previous institution, I developed a whole program called Guildhall Creative Entrepreneurs, which was very much trying to support emerging musicians with disruptive new ways of thinking and of being in the world. So it's, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helena. Jussi.
Hello, my name is Jussi Lehtonen. I am from Helsinki, Finland. I work in the Finnish National Theatre, where I'm running a program that we call Touring Stage. This program brings theatre performances and theatre workshops to different institutions of social and healthcare and prisons and camps for asylum seekers. Our second function is to create documentary theatre projects with differently marginalized or stigmatized communities. So for me, this concept of artistic citizenship is very much in the focus of my work. The program I'm running inside the National Theatre is aimed at raising a discussion around issues concerning the stigmatized and marginalized communities in the theatre through theatre on the stage of the National Theatre. So here theatre is a place for also for political discussion and raising the voices of different citizens.
Thank you so much, Jussi. Great to have you here. And Anna.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anna Rødevand. I'm a master's student at the Norwegian Academy of Music. I'm currently studying to pursuing a degree in violin performance. But I'm actually not in Oslo. I'm in Brussels at the moment, where I've been doing a student internship with the AEC, the European Association of Conservatoires. But I'm soon back in Oslo to finish my master. And to tell a bit about my background as well, I have been very involved in my academy as a student representative, both as a leader of the student council and member of the board. And 2 years ago, together with a fellow student, I initiated a project where we want to gather music students from all of Norway to discuss our future and careers and studies, which has now become the Norwegian Music Student Conference. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anna. And Anni.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Anni Syrjäläinen. I work as an advisor at the Nordic Culture Fund. We are physically based in Copenhagen. We work with funding. We give funding to arts and cultural projects that include international and Nordic collaborations. And we also gather and build knowledge on arts and culture and try to use that in different ways to stimulate the development of cultural policy also in the Nordic countries. I also do some work for a new organization called Nordic, which is a Nordic think tank for arts policies and the creative fields. And in that organization, we also try to kind of develop new type of knowledge and also build new types of partnerships across the arts sector and different professional fields, and try to kind of stimulate a new type of dialogue on the future of cultural policy and how we could strengthen and concretize the relevance of arts in our societies, and also to bridge the gap between politicians and the political sphere and then the realities existing in the arts world. And one of the themes there we are currently looking at is the kind of developments happening in artistic identities, and where we look at what are the kind of values, trends, new technologies, and economical infrastructures that shape and influence artistic practice and artistic identities these days. So I think that's also something that is closely linked to the idea of artistic citizenship, at least in some ways. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you so much, Anni. So as you see, we have a lot of different perspectives here, which is amazing. Before we kind of switch the focus to today's topic, the more financial and employability like perspective on artistic citizenship, I think it would be great to hear just a couple of words from all of you about what does artistic citizenship mean to you, because it is a quite complex term, and it would be great to have an idea about where you're kind of coming at it from, all of you. So whoever wants to start, please do. What does artistic citizenship mean to you?
Well, I can start. Maybe I could tell a little bit about the work I did with professional artists with a refugee background in Finland, because the question of artistic citizenship here was maybe quite special. These artists with whom we built a performance in the National Theatre, they were not citizens. They were in the position of asylum seeker, or some of them were already in the process of getting a citizenship. But here the Finnish National Theatre wanted to open its doors to people with different backgrounds. The National Theatre is a national art institution, and it was founded 150 years ago, in a moment when in Helsinki there was only Russian and Swedish speaking theaters. At that time it was the first Finnish language theater in the world. Well, things have changed ever since, and now in this project in 2016 we wanted to open our stages for performers who don't speak Finnish, who are not from this background, who have come from a different country, and who are in a vulnerable position in the society because they don't have a residence permit, they don't have a citizenship, and we wanted to tell their stories together with them. We had four performers. They were mostly from the Middle Eastern origin, artists of different art genres, musicians, actors, a documentarist. So this moment was a very special moment in Finland because there had been a lot of asylum seekers coming to Finland to seek for asylums, and this raised a heated political discussion. The theater building, the National Theater, is by the railway station. There's a big square in front of the theater, and in this square, all the time during our project, there was a demonstration going on. There was the Finland First demonstration and the other right to live demonstration organized by the asylum seekers. People from the demonstration came directly to the theater, to our workshops, to the rehearsals. So there was a very active debate around this around these issues, and our theater and the project was in many ways involved. Our first idea was to tell stories about integration, but then we found out that it's not a very good term in the life of our participants. There's no way to integrate when you don't have any rights, when you don't have a permission to be. So the performance started to deal with the process of seeking asylum in Finland, and especially the process of professional artists who have been persecuted in their home countries, and the question of the right for asylum in this kind of a situation. So here the art institution and the art provided an arena for discussion and for telling the stories and for being a part of a wider network, because for many of the people that we found through this project, we interviewed 15 professional artists who had come to Finland as refugees. We also opened a workshop, like a workshop for anybody with a refugee background who wanted to try theater. So we encountered a lot of people, and I think this was a very interesting yet very challenging project where we faced a lot of ethical dilemmas, of which I can talk later if it's interesting. But when we come to the topics of employment and financial impact, the National Theatre in Finland is kind of a gateholder in theatre and in the arts, and the possibility to perform there and to be seen there opened a lot of doors to our participants in the life after the project was over. So the project started in 2016 and finished in 2018, and for many people then they have managed to find a place in the Finnish art world after. Or normally this is very difficult. This is quite a closed circle, the Finnish art, especially the theater, because it's based on the Finnish language, a language that most people who come from another country wouldn't speak or understand. So there's a lot of reasons why it is so difficult to enter this bubble of Finnish professional artists. And maybe here this project showed that it's especially important that the gateholders, I don't know, gatekeepers, meaning this kind of big institutions, would make an effort that it really can have an impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jussi. And it's so great to hear these very concrete examples of what is this really about, and what does it actually put into motion also around the theatre and for the participants, and I bet also for the Finnish artists working alongside their colleagues from different backgrounds. Helena.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to pick up actually on a bit further on this idea of gatekeeping and gatekeeping in professional music, because I think it's a really, really important issue. in relation to artistic citizenship. I mean, artistic citizenship, I think, is a really problematic term as well as a really useful term. But for me, one of the things that's absolutely key at the moment in terms of what are we actually doing is about dismantling that sense of power dynamics between a sense of commitment to artistry and artistic endeavor, and who is able to engage in this, and who do we expect to engage in this. So to dissolve that sense of deep polarity and almost mutual exclusion that I think is still there in the music profession between, you know, on the one hand, artistic quality, and on the other hand, engagement in society and a sense of greater cultural democracy around music making. So that story of actually who is empowered and enabled to think of a theatre space as their space, and in doing that find a journey through towards being a professional artist, if that's what somebody wants to do, it feels really, really important. And I think, you know, that's some of the biggest hard work that we still have to do. Certainly in the UK, I think there's an ongoing structural set of issues here that certainly plays in my context in a conservatoire. I think it plays in funding context, although there's a lot that's changing there now, and it certainly plays in the ways that different musical organizations run. I think everyone's really working at this agenda now, but we have to acknowledge it's still very much something that is present. And I just wanted to bring a lovely example of an organization that I think is making incredible strides forward in terms of really embodying and living a version of artistic citizenship, and that would be the Manchester Collective, which is a relatively recent professional group. They've been going for a few years, but a group that is absolutely finding ways to not just connect with particular localities and particular groups of people in society, but to co-create with people and to allow artistic work to emerge from that context. And that for me is, that's another absolutely key thing, that to really fulfill artistic citizenship, we have to think of music making being that creative making process, that we allow new work to emerge, taking with us all the traditions that we have and those being a part of our music making, but we have to make afresh. We have to allow the music making to emerge from the contexts and the communities that we are working with.
Thank you so much, Helena, and also especially for bringing also the kind of the problematic side of the term artistic citizenship into this discussion as well, because it is very important. And one could also argue that the term itself, because as you mentioned, Jussi, what if you're not a citizen, at least on paper? Already there is kind of a power dynamic present that we at least need to be aware of. So it really has two sides, this term, for sure. Annie, please.
I just also wanted to kind of continue on that. And also I think that you can see kind of a paradox in that term also when you look at it from a kind of Nordic perspective, also from a historical perspective, because I think the linkage between arts and citizenship traditionally has been very strong in the Nordic countries, and the linkage between different societal objectives and the idea of inclusion and equality. And it has also kind of been at the core of our cultural policies to kind of really see art as a public good and a public service, and in having a very important role in building our welfare states and forming as you said, also the kind of very core of our democracies. But at the same time, when we look at our systems and structures, we actually can see that they are not that well succeeding in that task and guaranteeing this equal participation and access as they are maybe supposed to. And that's why I think also why artistic citizenship is more and more kind of happening outside also these established institutions and institutional context, and kind of navigating they're outside this context. So I think it's a really interesting to see how is it possible for these established structures also to somehow be renewed and updated so that they could answer and be more relevant.
Thank you so much. And Anna, I always hesitate putting it like this, but let me elaborate from a student perspective, and that not being one thing, I have to say. Could you maybe tell us a bit about, would you say that you've encountered both this term, but also looking into your education as where you are now? Have you met this? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I can see where you want to go. So I think the term for me means that through my music, I contribute and connect with society. Then the next step is, how do I do it? And I think that is a much harder question for students to answer if they don't get it experience through their studies with connecting with society on a high artistic level, and seeing their practice in working. And for me, I have this one project week through my master's that was amazing, which really opened my eyes to how to connect with the society and community around. We were a group of students who got to travel to one of the most northern towns in Norway for a whole week. This was January 2020, right before the pandemic, all the restrictions. And the main goal of the week was to engage with the community. And there's so many ways to organize such a project, but we didn't go there with a rehearsed program. We had to do everything there, see the circumstances we were in, and interpret what music to do and projects to engage in. So we had concerts in the local church, the culture center, in living rooms. We had lunch concerts every day. But we also did another project. This was with the 5th graders in town. And we divided to go to each different schools, and we had so little time the week to plan. And also there was a gigantic storm. So it was very complicated. And my group was supposed to go a bit out of town, which was then canceled because the roads were blocked. So in the morning, we had to organize with a different group. We had 10 minutes, and a guitar player said, let's make a song. Let's make a song with these kids. I remember telling the students what we were going to do, and a girl came up to me and said, this is impossible. How will we do it? And of course, I thought myself, okay, how will we do it? I have no idea. I've never made a song. I'm a violin player. But of course, I didn't tell her, trying to be confident. But the next hour, we were really co-creating a song which was on their terms. They decided the title, they got to sing in their own dialect, and it was, of course, about this storm. And when we finished, the kids were so excited and said this was the best song they've experienced heard in their whole lives. It was the most amazing and cool song. And of course, this was an eye-opener for me as a performer. I've been doing concerts for most of my life. I haven't really done co-creation, and especially not with kids. And for me, it was an eye-opener of how engaging and rewarding it could be to engage with this, especially on their terms. Not that we came in, showed them what classical music is or what music is, but we really show them through involving them what music can be. And yeah, the next time we came, they all had, some of them had written songs they wanted to show us, and was really interesting to see their engagement in music. But this is the only week through my 6 years of studies.
But it sounds like that 1 week actually has a huge place now when you think back on what you're taking from your education overall. Thank you for that lovely story. And I think we've had the keyword co-creation come up a couple of times now. So it might be interesting to try to approach then co-creation with this financial sustainability perspective attached to it. Because, for instance, in the mind of supporters of the arts, and I'm now putting this on the edge, just I'm aware of that, it might be difficult to approach supporters with something that is not yet described, if you know what I mean. How do you approach a financial supporter with a co-creation project where you may not know the outcome at all yet? We've talked a bit about that, maybe the awareness of this, and also you, I think it was you who mentioned it, Annie, the whole, how does arts and co-creation in arts and co-creation between arts and society actually support our welfare system in general? Do you see a change? This is not only directed at you, this question, Annie, but do you see a change in how this is approached, especially now focusing on the financial supporters on the arts and of the arts? Here, I'm not only thinking about foundations, I'm also thinking about private companies, strategic partnerships, stuff like this.
Well, I would say that we can at least see a better awareness around these topics. And when we look at the kind of, for example, the state support systems and some foundations, I think recently there, for example, has kind of occurred kind of a new type of awareness around the need to, for example, start renegotiating some of these very core concepts that have been used in funding context. For example, the concept of quality and the concept of artistic quality that has traditionally been seen kind of in a narrower sense in relation to this kind of disciplinary specific expertise, and used as a kind of gatekeeper to funding and as a goal for arts education and arts policy as well. But now I think that when also funding bodies are becoming more and more aware of how artistic practice is taking so many different shapes and crossing different types of boundaries and sexual divisions, and so there's a new type of discussion of how should this kind of quality be defined in the future, and who should be the ones assessing it, and could we somehow multiply the notion of or expand the notion of quality so that we could ensure more kind of inclusive and diverse, more relevant art sector. But I think it's it's also a question about kind of changing the systems, which is still kind of very much kind of sector based from the beginning. But we are also at the Nordic Culture Fund, as you said, this kind of dilemma with the supporting the process or the outcomes. So it's also very current and relevant topic for us when we are at the moment developing our new funding programs, because we also see it as a dilemma, and we want to shift the focus to the actual work and to the actual process, because you cannot kind of, with art you cannot see what you will achieve in the end. You cannot see the outcomes before.
Thank you so much. And also, Jussi, you pointed to it in your story about the project, that what you did in the Finnish National Theatre actually ended up creating possibilities for employment for the people who participated in the project, which was something, I don't know if you kind of had that in mind at the beginning of the project,
but at least it's a very interesting outcome in the end.
Yeah, well, we started with the idea of with a concept of integration, and we thought that after 2015, we started in 2016. We thought maybe the question of integration would be quite vocal at that point, 2017, when we had premiere, but it went to another direction and more towards the political questions of asylum and seeking asylum and the freedom of speech, freedom of art in different countries, also how it is conceived in Finland and by the migration authorities. So it went that way. But there is clearly another layer, and that of the integration. And maybe in the Finnish context, this is conceived as a very difficult thing, that integration of or inclusion that is kind of determined not to succeed in the society. And this is, of course, a very politicized concept and a discussion. Or if we think a little bit more broadly, the concept of inequality, or like some people will be left aside. Like if you are born to a family of drug users, you will become one yourself too. That is your fate, or it's a very small probability that there could be any change. So these kind of they are like as if it's a destiny. So in this kind of atmosphere, I think for example, this project that I told you about gives a lot of hope, because okay, the 4 professional artists who were performing in this production, this experience and this visibility in the National Theatre opened many doors to them, and these doors opened possibilities for employment. If the asylum was not granted, that the migration in Finland decided that your story is not, we don't trust what you're saying, you are not granted finding work, getting a permission to work, and getting a permission to live due to work, and getting a citizenship that way. So this happened to some people. For some others, the visibility on the stage and the discussion around it changed the direction of what the migration had already decided. So in the court, it was taken, and the court decided that the asylum has to be granted to this person who obviously has been persecuted due to his profession as artist in his home country. Well, now I'm talking about many stories that happened, but that in a different logic. But there was also on stage a choir of 15 people who were non-professionals, but they were also on stage as a choir. Out of these people, I think 10 continued doing art and found some kind of networks in Finland through art. So I haven't done that kind of a research where I could show you the data statistically, but it's obvious that the participation in this project made the integration for many people a lot easier, and it kind of shows that okay, in arts is possible. Like the thing that is doomed to be impossible, the integration will not succeed. Well, it can, and maybe art could be, or maybe forming this kind of a hybrid community where, like in our hybrid community, the National Theatre artists decided consciously to build a community with the artists with a refugee background. Something special, some special kind of exchange happened in this hybrid community. And I think this exchange is crucial, and it led to possibilities for integration, for employment, for finding your place in the new society, for learning the language, for many, many things that maybe they are not finance, but they are capital in a mental way, like they are different kind of a capital. Very important tool for integration, inclusion. I don't know what word is the best. So yeah, I'm really, like, now I can see it. I'm still in touch with the people, and this and that person is working in the TV series, and this and that person is making a career as a musician, and this and that person is studying in the theater academy in this study program for acting, where you have to speak very good Finnish, and suddenly they do speak that Finnish that is required for a professional actor in this country. I don't know, this, I'm so much happy for these success stories, because there's so much of this talk that it's impossible, it's doomed to not succeed. I don't know if I if I make myself understood, but I think we should highlight the possibility that arts can have in the integration, in the inclusion, and in this, that there is a big possibility, and understanding this could lead to maybe this could be applied in other contexts too.
You're definitely making yourself understood. Thank you for bringing this to the table. I would like to then try to bring one of the challenges that might, in my opinion at least, stand between what you're saying and actually realizing this. And this is also based on my own experience from when I was doing my master's thesis called Meeting in Music, where I spent 3 months in a refugee center. And the reason that I'm mentioning the 3 months as a kind of a key element here is because trust plays a huge role in all of this. And I know also from reading about your project, Jussi, that you encountered challenging situations along the way that required a lot of dialogue and a lot of meeting each other in difficult circumstances and difficult topics. And one of the things there that I am seeing as a challenge, again, with the financial glasses on here, is it takes time to build trust. It takes continuity to build trust. And therefore, at least to some extent, the kind of project-minded framework that we're working within is an obstacle, or can be an obstacle, to actually achieving kind of the foundation that this is going to build upon. You can go in and do something for a day and definitely have a positive outcome. But again, it's people, and it's sometimes a lot of things that have to come together in these hybrid communities. So that for me is one of the main challenges. How do we support things that go on for a long time, maybe even implement them within existing systems that are not foundations, but that are structural, state supported, something like that. Just wanted to bring that to the table as well. How do we actually support the project, the process, that much that it can actually develop over time? I don't know if any of you have some comments on that.
Maybe I can briefly say that this is, of course, for the National Theatre, opening this program that is a permanent part of the National Theatre is a very good thing, that it's not only projects, but there is some kind of a continuity. Of course, this, what I told you about, is a project that has a beginning and an end, but let's say the wheel behind is continuous. I think these kind of structures we need, and yeah, we need them in this kind of national institutions like a national theatre, but also in the academies. In Finland, we have a big discussion in theatre about representation, because as I earlier said, the actors in Finland originally, they have to be very good in Finnish or in Swedish. And now we have a big population in the country who don't speak who speak neither of these two languages, or do speak, but they don't master them in that way that you should or traditionally. And now the challenge is how we can build education for young people who are not super fluent in Finnish or Swedish, but who are talented as performers. How do we build this track from amateur theater to being a professional university-trained actor in this country? Because at the moment we are facing the situation where we can't perform many plays because they include roles that, according to the present understanding, we can't represent. I mean that there is different like ethnical backgrounds needed on the stage, and there is nobody to play them because everybody looks like a Nordic person.
Sure. Annie?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think one kind of general problem with that is also that our kind of institutions or kind of funding work is very much kind of sector specific and sector based. So I think it's very important also to kind of learn to develop more kind of horizontal perspective in that, and develop dialogue and coordination kind of across different administrative branches and sectors and societies. Also seek new types of partnerships, as Jussi said, also institutions and academies, and also between players in private and public sector, and maybe also that way try to broaden the funding base a bit more. I think if we don't succeed in that, then there is this risk that the kind of work continues to be very kind of diffused or project based and short term, and it's not kind of embedded in the structures. Yeah.
Thank you, Anni. Helena?
Yeah, I was just going to echo that really. For me, I have a very strong feeling that we still operate in quite a fragmented environment in terms of how the profession works, but also how funding works. And I would say in the UK, you know, we are, for example, seeing some initiatives come through that are more kind of systemic. So we've got health boards who are really kind of now taking forwards an artistic prescribing model, which I think is, you know, brings some of that longer perspective that you were talking about, Camilla. But I think which you know, and it's great to see that, but what we really need to work at within the music profession as a whole, the artistic professions as a whole, and with the funding is to get a much more joined up approach between the different sorts of funding. So right from the earliest seed funding, which you know, some of our conservatoires are even providing to kind of just start to open up possibilities and new directions and to explore ways of working in different contexts, right through from that to some of the trusts and foundations and the private philanthropy and the corporate the corporate pots of funding for social responsibility and so on, through to the policy, you know, that more government-led policy and systemic approach for long-term funding. And I think that piece of it has been much more fragmented, and you know that our time now is to find the ways to work much more in partnership across these different parts of the sector.
Thank you, Helena. Anna, I would like to ask you, when you talking about this also employability aspect, now we've talked a bit about it regarding participants in a project, what could it open, what sorts of doors open up, but what about when you had that experience going away for this week? Did that change your perspective on your employability options when you finish your education?
I think it did, but I still see the challenge now. It was, of course, right before the pandemic. If the momentum to keep continuing in this path, I believe I would have done a lot more during my master's. But now I'm just thinking about we're talking about the funding for these types of projects, how unsure, how uncertain it is, and how difficult it can be to, as a like newly established, I don't know, musician, to go this path. I clearly see it in all students that now security and of course what is regarded as these high positions as an orchestra, it's what people pursue. And I do believe that this going in the path of be engaging more in society is hard to choose, just because of the the uncertainty in your payment coming in, or I don't know, am I but I feel it is hard. And also there's no clear position there. You have to create it, and that is also if you're not introduced to it during your studies, it's hard to start in that direction. And I'm so glad I had that experience, and of now the program or this week is cancelled for all, it doesn't exist anymore. So I'm very fortunate to have had this experience, but I do know a lot of students don't, and only see are presented one path, I would say, during their studies.
Thank you. We have reached the point where we have around 10 minutes left, and I would like to invite, if there are any of you listening who have questions, comments, whatever, you're very welcome to share them with us. Again, I remind you, if you do it with your voice, it will be on the recording. You're also welcome to write in the chat. And just raise your hand if you have anything to say, and I will give you the word. Are there anyone who actually have comments or questions? The good thing is, if not, I'll just come up with more. So don't worry at all. But of course, you should have the opportunity. So let's go on a bit further then, and just jump in, any of you, if you have something to say. To try, this is of course a very, very, very difficult topic to kind of conclude something on. We've focused on a lot of different aspects of this. We have the fragmented kind of funding system and a lack of maybe co-creation across departments in general. And I would like to add to that, maybe also we need to practice the dialogue around co-creation. Where does it start? How do you approach someone, be it an institution or a group or a single person, whom you would like to co-create with? And I'm interested to hear a bit about, do you have any ideas, suggestions, how we could encourage that within our educational systems, be it music or theater or whatever comes to your mind?
Could you repeat that, Camilla? I didn't completely understand.
Of course.
Thank you.
These questions are difficult to ask, I have to say. What I was trying to ask was, so if we agree, and it seems we do, that co-creation plays a huge role in this, how can that co-creation be encouraged? Because, for instance, if I would find myself in a position of a student and I would like to actually seek out the opportunity to work with this, for instance, in collaboration with an organization outside of music, how do we bridge the gap? Was that more clear?
Yes, I think I have it now.
Good.
I can have a try. I can talk about something that we're now really busy with in Wales, in Cardiff, in my institution, to try and work at this, which is to set up a whole network of residencies for our students, as particularly for our students working in small groups, so small ensembles, which might be just a music ensemble, or it might be a interdisciplinary ensemble. So the idea behind this is of course co-creation can start within your own set of peers. You know, if some of the if you like, the craft of co-creation actually can begin from day one when you're in the institution. But then we're wanting to set up this network of residencies to enable groups to go and really inquire into a context. So these residencies might be in schools, they might be in community venues, they might be with businesses, they might be in healthcare settings, they could, you know, in a whole variety of settings, with the idea that your residency is not a couple of days, or it's not a week. You know, I was really struck by what Anna was saying, how much she learned from that, but we need to develop this as a core part of practice. So these residencies will be something that extend for a whole term or half a year or for a whole year, so that you start to dig into all those layers of co-creation that need the time, Camilla, that you were starting to talk about. So it's not about, okay, we have to go in and deliver a project and then we come out again, but actually, okay, we go and we begin some work, and then we go back and we develop work more, and we learn at each stage and have the chance to be surprised. We have the chance to experiment and work in different ways that maybe we haven't done before, and to allow the co-creation to evolve and change. You know, just as Jussi was saying, you know, we started off with one idea that this was about integration, but it became about something quite else. And to have the potential to really embrace all that disruption and surprising learning, and to put yourself in that position of going into a context not knowing what's going to come out, but, you know, having plenty of ideas and possibilities, but allowing that co-creation and co-creation piece to emerge. So for us, you know, we're taking this decision that a residency model and a kind of long-term residency model is a kind of key part of how we can start to enable this for the long term.
Thank you, Helena. I see that Jonathan has a comment. So Jonathan, please, the word is yours.
Thank you. And I also want to just say thank you for a very nice, interesting talk. I think it's been great to listen to also how you've been working with all of your projects. So I just want to say thank you for that. And when it comes to co-creation, I also think it comes a lot down to essentially each individual artist has a kind of like responsibility to evaluate the value proposition of your art towards our organization. So maybe it could be something like, instead of providing just representation for myself, maybe how can I use my art and my craft to provide representation for our community? So in that regard, like when you are kind of like trying to make a proposition towards either a fund or like our organization, I think it comes a lot down to essentially finding ways to work creatively with art in order to provide a value, a concrete value proposition, which could be like if you are talking with European funds, for instance, your value proposition might be something like equal representation, or kind of like representation for for kind of like underrepresented regions maybe of the European Union. So I think it's always like analyzing the context of kind of like how you can, through your artistic medium, provide a concrete value towards that partner. Yeah, that was just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And actually now 3 words that three words just came to my mind now, which is context, co-creation, and maybe courage, which I think is kind of a good place to land this one today.